Today we're going to talk about the point-slope form of a line. And just like it says, to write an equation of a line in point-slope form, all you need is one point and the slope. And this is what the form looks like. Y equals m parentheses x minus x1 close parentheses plus y1. And there's a lot there, so let's kind of go through it. The first thing that you need to know is that the x and the y have to stay in our equation. We're writing a relationship here between x and y, and so they have to stay there. But there are three values here that we're going to actually replace these variables with numbers. So m we're always going to replace with a slope. The parentheses are going to stay in our equation, and x1 and y1, that's just a fancy way of saying some point, xy, on the line. Now we use these ones here so that we don't get them confused between this x and this y. So my hint to you is that these numbers here kind of tell us where to put our point, and then m here tells us the slope. So we've got y equals m parentheses x, and then we're going to have a number usually with the x inside parentheses. And that number, whatever it is going to tell us how far left or right to move from the origin. And my hint is that if there's a plus number, we're moving to the left, and if there's a minus a number, we're going to move to the right. And then the number here outside parentheses tells us up or down. Up would be a plus some number and down would be a minus some number. So the only tricky thing here is to know that the number inside parentheses with the x is really the opposite of what you would think. Normally, if we are thinking about our x-axis and we're thinking plus some number, we would think we would be moving to the right. But with point-slope form, it's actually the opposite of that. So if you see plus some number, you're going to move to the left from the origin. And if you see minus some number, you're going to be moving to the right. So you just need to keep reminding yourself, with point-slope form, it's the opposite of what we think. So here's our first example. And the funny thing about point-slope form is if I want to write an equation of this line, there are actually infinite different equations that I could write in point-slope form because there are infinite points on the line. And with point-slope form, you need to know the slope, and then you just need one point. And that's why we're going to have multiple options for writing equations. So I always recommend by first starting with the slope. So the first thing I need to find is the slope, and we always use m to represent slope. And here I'm just going to pick 2 points, and I'm going to calculate the rise and the run. And the rise here is up 2, the run is over 1, slope equals rise over run, and 2 divided by 1 equals 2. So the slope of this line is 2, and I'm just going to do a quick check, make sure that my slope should be positive, and since we're going up and to the right, the slope is positive. So now I need a point. Point-slope form, you need the slope, and you need a point. And I can choose any point that I want to. I think maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll pick this point here. So that point, let's go ahead and write down the coordinates of that point. It's left 1 and up 3. Okay, those are the coordinates of that point. So when we're writing the equation in point-slope form, we're basically writing directions for somebody to graph the line. So it always starts with y equals m. We already figured out that our slope is 2. Then I need parentheses. Then I need my x. So remember, in point-slope form, we always leave the x and the y in our equation. Here's where things get a little bit tricky. If I'm writing directions to somebody to graph that point, I want them to go left 1. And if we come over here to our little cheat sheet, a left actually means we're going to be putting a plus inside parentheses. So I'm going to put plus 1. That tells whoever is going to be graphing this line, remember plus means left, it tells them to go left 1, left 1. Remember, it's the opposite of what you would think. And then I would also want to tell them to go up 3. Up means plus, okay, so plus 3. So that's the equation of the line in point-slope form. And the reason we have a plus here, I just want to show you, is that if we want to use the coordinates and plug them into our formula, we would have x minus x1. So I would have minus, and x1 is -1. Plus y1 would be +3. And we all know that whenever you see minus a negative, it turns into plus a positive. So there are two ways to think about it. But that's the equation of the line in point slope form. And I do want to point out that you could also use any of these other points to write the equation and it would still be correct. So if I wanted to use this point, then I'm going to write slope is still the same, the slope is 2x, and then I want to tell whoever's graphing this line to move 3 to the left. Okay, left means plus, so I'm going to say move 3 to the left. And then I want them to move down 1. Down is minus, -1. So these are all true. Okay, that is the correct equation of the line. That is the correct equation of the line. And I could write infinitely more. Okay, this is point slope form. Let's try example 2. First thing I should do is find the slope. So I can pick any 2 points that I want. And as I move from one point to the other, you always want to move to the right. So I'm going to be going down 1 and right 2. So down 1 and right 2. Rise over run, down 1, right 2. So the slope of this line is -1/2. So now I'm ready to move to the point slope form, and I just need to choose one point, and it really doesn't matter which point you choose. I might choose that point, and I'm going to write directions for somebody to find that point using the point slope form. So I'm going to start with y equals -1/2 and then my parentheses. So I'm making it look just like this. I need my x, the x and the y stay. And now I want to tell whoever's going to be graphing this to move right 1. And right in point slope form means minus. So I'm going to tell them, okay, move right 1. It's the opposite of what you would think. And then I need to tell them to move up 2. Up means plus, plus 2. That's the point slope form of the line. And I could write another equation for the line. I can do as many as I want to, but let me do another one using this point. Slope is still the same. Need my parentheses, I need the x. And so first I'm going to tell whoever's graphing this to move left 1. And left means plus. And then I'm going to tell them to go up 3, plus 3. So both of these are correct, and actually if I were to simplify them, they would come out to be the exact same thing. So now that we know how to write the equation of a line, let's talk about how to graph lines. So here I've got some empty graphs, and we are going to use the equation here to actually graph the line. So I want to start by figuring out, what are the directions here? A +1 inside parentheses, if I come over to my cheat sheet, +1 means right. Okay, oops, sorry, that's wrong. Scratch that. It means left. See, I get confused too. Plus inside parentheses means left. So I'm going to go left 1, and then a -3 outside parentheses means go down. So this means, and I'll go ahead and write it in, left 1, down 3. That's where my point is located. Left 1, down 3, and then plot a point. And the slope is given to me. The slope is 3. So I always like to write my slope as a fraction, 3/1, and this means rise over run. Since it's positive, I'm going up, and you always go to the right. So this was the directions to plot my point. These are directions for where to go from my point. So from the point, I'm going to go up 3, right 1. And I can do that a couple times. Up 3, right 1. And there's my line. Let's look at example 4. You want to start here with the point. A -3 inside parentheses means right 3. So I'm going to go right 3. A +1 outside parentheses means up 1. So that's my point. And I'm going to write that down because it gets confusing sometimes. What's the point and what's the slope? That's the point. So I'm going to go right 3, up 1, and plot my point. And then from there, I'm going to use my slope to figure out what to do next. So my slope is negative 1/3. So negative means down 1 and right 3. So I plotted my point, and the slope tells me where to go from there. So I'm going to go down 1, oops, I'm kind of out of space, and right 3. And since I'm out of space, I think I'm going to kind of go backwards. 1, 2, 3, 1. So that's what my line there is going to look like. Let's look at another example. So here it's y equals 2x minus 3. And I chose this example because you'll notice it doesn't look like point slope form. There are no parentheses. And if that happens, if there's nothing inside parentheses with the x, that means we are not going to move left or right. Okay, we're not moving left or right. No left or right movement because there's no number inside parentheses with the x. But the minus 3 tells us that our point is going to go down 3. So to locate our point, we're not going to move left or right, but we are going to move down 3. Okay? Inside parentheses tells you left or right. Outside of parentheses tells you up or down. And our slope is 2. 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1. So to figure out where to go from there, rise over run. So I'm going to go up 2, right 1, plot a point, up 2, right 1, plot a point, and there's my line. Last example, example 6. Inside parentheses tells us left or right, and it's the opposite of what we think. So a plus means go left 2 to find our point. And there's nothing over here outside of parentheses. So that means there's no up or down movement. Okay? It's sort of like imagining that there's a plus 0 there. There's no up or down movement. So to locate my point, I'm going to go 2 to the left, and I'm not going to move up or down. And there's my point. To figure out where to go from there, I'm going to use the slope. So the slope is negative 1. That's the same thing as negative 1 over 1. A minus 1 means go down, and then you always move to the right. So from this point, I'm going to go down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. And you can do that as many times as you need to until you're able to draw your line. So there it is. So the key points to remember here is that when you're graphing a line, first you need to locate your point, and that's what you do. The inside parentheses and the outside parentheses, that helps you find your point. Then the slope tells you where to go from there, and that's how to graph a line in point slope form.